Hi, Cat's Cradle here. Earlier today, when I made the video showing you how to store packages of food in baskets, how to organize them in your food storage, I thought of something when I was looking at this basket of seeds and nuts. I thought that I probably should tell you or several ways that I store seeds and nuts, edible seeds and nuts. This, of course, is one way. Just in the bag they came in. Those are nuts and seeds that I'm going to eat fairly quickly. You see at the front there's roasted sunflower seeds, but there's also almonds and cashews, that kind of thing. I also sometimes store them in the container they came in. These have a plastic lid on them and then a pull top seal here, and these will last a pretty good while. So I'll leave several of those on the shelf. But I think I've showed you in a previous video. If not, you can look at how I store brown sugar. I think that was the first video I ever made. And you can store nuts the same way by vacuum sealing them, just putting a little cut in the original bag that they came in, slipping them in a Food Saver bag, and then vacuum sealing them shut. It really gives them a lot of protection. These happen to be walnuts. I do a lot of, these are almonds, I can see. I do pecans. I do sunflower seeds. I store a lot of them. In fact, this big container right here is loaded with all kind of things. There's pecans and walnuts and all kind of nuts are in there. I also store nuts in my freezer, so I've got them everywhere. They're really a good food to have, to put in granola and cookies and in your cereal, anything. You know what they're good for. I had a source of pecans several years ago, but when we had a tornado come through here, it tore down my neighbor's pecan tree that he had planted when he was 10 years old. He's still living in the house he was born in, right next door to us. And so that pecan tree is gone, so I don't have a source of nuts, and our property is not big enough to have a nut tree. It would shade our garden too much. So anyway, I purchased a lot of nuts. They're in the freezer, they're in bags like this, and they're vacuum sealed. But I want to share with you a third way to store your nuts that you may not be aware of. Did you know that you can your nuts? And let me tell you a little bit how to do it. I'm not going to show you the process because it's very simple, but I'm going to tell you. What you do is you take your nuts, say you were doing these were walnuts. You spread them on a baking sheet and put them in your oven at a low temperature, about 250 degrees, and you would roast them. And I'm using that word very, very loosely because you're not going to want to brown them at all. What you're doing is getting any residual moisture that's in them out. So you roast them very slowly, about 250 degrees, stirring them frequently, like every 15 minutes, until they feel pretty dry to you. I wouldn't do them. They probably don't need to be done more than about 30 minutes. Maybe stirring at every 10-minute interval would probably be good as you're first learning how to do this. And then what you're going to want to do is have hot sterilized jars at the ready. You will want to have lids and rings that you have previously sterilized, but you do not want them wet. If I were you, I would keep them warm like I showed you on the video where you heat your lids and rings on a heating pad on high. You can go back and look at that video if you want to. I'll post a link to it below. So keep the lids and rings will be hot but not wet, so you don't have them in boiling water. They're just hot. And your jars will be sterilized, okay? And then you put your hot nuts in the jar, dry. No moisture goes in here. Your roasted nuts go in here hot and dry. You put the lid and the seal on, screwing it tightly. Most of the times we tell you just finger tight, but on the nuts you go ahead and screw it on tightly. And then you can process it one of two ways. You can pressure can it for 10 minutes at 5 pounds of pressure. Okay, again, 10 minutes at 5 pounds of pressure. Or you can put it in a boiling water bath for 20 minutes. Now, if you put it in a boiling water bath, you would only want the water to come up to about here. Typically in a boiling water bath, you have the water covering your jars by 1 or 2 inches. Not in this case. You would have your water line down here and process it for about 20 minutes. All you're wanting to do, the jar is hot, the nuts are hot, all you want to do is pull a vacuum on that jar. So either way, in a pressure canner for 10 minutes at 5 pounds of pressure, or in a boiling water bath for 20 minutes. And this will allow you to keep your nuts for a very long time. I hope you give that a try if you prefer that over just vacuum sealing them. That is another option for you, to go ahead and put them in jars and put them on your shelf. Of course, put your little sock sleeve on to protect your jars from banging together if you don't have the original boxes that have the divider in them. I hope you will store nuts and seeds. It's a good source of protein. It adds a lot of variety to your diet, and there's several ways you can store them. I hope this helps. Cat's Cradle.